does it become enough? When does it become too much for us to look away? To look away. What are we waiting for? Why does there have to be more who suffer while we wait? Why do we hesitate? Who will cry? Who will go? Who will touch? And who will show the heart of Christ, the hands of Christ, the love of Christ unto the least? The heart of Christ, the hands of Christ, the love of Christ unto the least.
As a Christian alternative to state foster care, the ranch provides a safe, loving, encouraging environment for children in danger of abuse, abandonment, or death. For these little ones, we seek shepherding and rescue families who desire to open their hearts and homes to children in need. Shepherding families are available for long-term placement or possible adoption of children orphaned by the living. Families are required to pass an extensive background check and, if required, a complete home study. Rescue families are available to respond, usually short-term, to a crisis situation in their area. This might include the need for emergency childcare due to incarceration or medical emergency of a parent.
He took a little child and had him stand among them. Taking him in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me does not welcome me, but the one who sent me." Mark 9:36 and 37. Under Roman law, the 12 Tables, Law of the Kings, parents could and often did commit infanticide. Christians picked up abandoned babies who were simply left in the gutters to die. Thus, the early Christian church became an orphanage for the babies orphaned by the living.
According to the National Child Abuse and Neglect Data System, over 1,500 children died as a result of abuse and neglect in 2003. 79% of them were 4 years or less, 10% were from 4 to 7, 5% were from 8 to 11 years old, and 6% of them were from 12 to 17 years old. My name is Teresa Deason. I'm a deputy medical investigator for the state of New Mexico. 1/3 of all child fatalities was due to neglect. Child abuse was also a contributing factor. Don't let one of these precious children end up on my board.
Over a period of time, we felt a real burden in our hearts to do something about the orphan, neglected, abandoned children that we all read and hear about. There's a real tug in our hearts about this, and I guess the catalyst was a baby that we ended up naming Eve. Eve is a baby that died at 28 days. Eve is a fictional name that we gave her, not knowing her real name. This happened approximately 2, maybe 3 years ago. Eve had been tortured and abused to the point the medical examiner said that she had over 30 broken bones. This was done by her biological parents. As of January of 2006, the Lord brought 2 little boys into our ministry, the first 2 children. They're currently now ages 3 and almost 5. We feel that the Lord brought these 2 children to us to show us that what we would be faced with typically in the future in raising children that had come from a neglected situation. Both these boys are making a wonderful progress from what was very much a very severe neglected situation. It's a very interesting question how the pine tree symbol came about. We bought this 10 acres of land several years ago. As we began clearing for a house location, we noticed that there were pine trees, ponderosa pine trees, and other properties around us, but we didn't apparently have any pine trees. And then we noticed what looked like a baby ponderosa pine sticking up through underbrush and encompassed around by trees. And so as we cleared that out, we found that what this actually was a ponderosa pine that had been beaten down by the rubbings of deer and elk rubbing their antlers against this tree. So we took this one pine tree and we stood it up and we staked it out straight and we fed and watered this tree. And a couple years later, as my wife was sitting out on the porch looking out at our view and looking at this pine tree, the Lord kind of came alongside of her and said, well, what do you think about this pine tree? And after a few moments of reflection, he said to her that this pine tree is like the scarred beaten down children that I'm going to bring to you. I want you to love them and nurture them and teach them about me. And then someday they too will stand tall and strong like this pine tree.